Sang, for inviting me. And also, I feel privileged to sit on with the other two distinguished panelists on this panel. Well, it seems like today's discussion is heavily focused on Korean Peninsula issue and some of the security implications about that issue. So I'll try to give you a little bit general overview where we are regarding Korean Peninsula issue. And perhaps we also think about where are we going from here. So as you see, Korean Peninsula, it seems like we are at a critical juncture. We have been struggling to solve North Korean nuclear issue almost for the past 30 years. But it seems like we are still at the beginning, not the end of the process. And as you see, this year, we had a lot of events that can signal a change may be coming, but at the same time, we don't have yet any confidence if this time indeed we can solve the problem. Today, this year, early this year, Kim Jong-un's New Year's address hinted that he's thinking some strategic decision to discuss the nuclear issue. And also, on the occasion of Korean Winter Olympic, Pyeongchang Winter Olympic, and North Korean special envoy visited Seoul and discussed some of the details. And as you see, after that, the progress has been quite quickly. April 27, President Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un met at Panmunjom for the summit meeting. Well, after that, ROC, US, Korea, Japan, and ROC, China, Japan, a series of summit meetings discussed that issue. And also, as you see, June 12 at Singapore, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un met for a very historic summit. I will talk the devaluation a few minutes later. But as you see, this year alone, we have quite many incidents. Can you remember what was the most often discussed topic last year in Korean media? Around the summer last year, Korean media were quite heavily discussed about the so-called bloody nose strike of the Trump administration, which means the possible military action against the DPRK. So it was a very tense situation, looking back just a year ago. Moon Jae-in administration inaugurated in early last year. And last summer, President Trump mentioned the famous fire and fury speech. And North Korea's answer, they responded with the firing Hwasong-15 ICBM missile. So it seems like the Korean Peninsula situation is almost like a collusion course. And we had a lot of concern both in and out of Korea. But nevertheless, the thing has quickly changed since the Kim Jong-un's New Year address early this year. In that speech, Kim mentioned that he is willing to negotiate with the United States over nuclear issue. And we all know the story behind after that. Suddenly, we have a new situation, and it seems like that maybe we are witnessing for the first time genuine change. But as I mentioned, probably don't know yet where we are going from here. Okay, let me go through quickly about the historical background of the nuclear issue, because some of you may not be familiar with the entire history. As you see, the first nuclear crisis began in early 1990s. In 1991, French commercial satellite spotted some suspected activities on the Yong nuclear reactor. And in May 1992, IAEA inspection team visited North Korea, and they found some inconsistencies in North Korea reporting about their nuclear activities. And next year, North Korea threatened to withdraw from the NPT, and thanks to Jimmy Carter's personal diplomacy, US and DPRK reached a Geneva Agreed framework. The agreement actually included some of the very important issues. First one is the Fudan inspection. Second one is the diplomatic normalization between two nations. And third is the security assistance. And fourth is the implementation of the 1992 joint declaration of denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. So, if these agreements were fully implemented, perhaps I think North Korean nuclear issue may be far better situation right now. But unfortunately, as we know, we know what happened after that. And based on this Geneva Agreed framework, KIDO, Korean Energy Development Organization, launched in 1994. And they were trying to build the two light water reactors in Sinpo and providing heavy fuel oil in compensation for stopping their nuclear activities. But as you see, in 2002, another situation, another round of the crisis. In October 2002, U.S. Assistant Secretary James Kelly visited Pyongyang, and he suggested some evidence about North Korean HEU activities. And we all know that after that, the crisis began to unfold again. And pretty much the situation continues since then. Of course, there were several milestones and successful compromise between the DPRK international community. For example, September 19 joint statement, and also June 27, 2008, destruction of Yong reactor cooling tower, etc. But nevertheless, one step forward, two steps backward. I think that's the repeated pattern of the bargaining with North Korea so far. So given that background, it is quite remarkable. How can things change so fast on the Korean Peninsula? This is what happened early this year. During the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic, Michael Pence is sitting there, and Kim Jong's younger sister is there also. And based on that contact and discussion, finally, South Korean President Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un had a very meaningful meeting in Panmunjom. And probably there are many theories or explanations. Why suddenly Kim Jong-un decided to come to talk table? Roughly, there are many theories, but roughly three factors. One is the confidence, second is the fear, and third is the mediation. Probably the three factor may be most important factor that brought Kim Jong-un to the negotiation table. Confidence means that North Korea early this year, they declared that they completed national nuclear forces, and we also know that their ICBM capabilities are near completion. And because of that, now Kim Jong-un is ready to turn his policy, strategic policy, from Byongjin to economic first approach. And also fear is the important part because the economic collapse due to maximum pressure and sanction, and also US kinetic action, the so-called bloody North Strike. I think that has an important part in bringing North Korea to the bargaining table. And of course, South Korean mediation, particularly the Moon Jae-in government's effective diplomacy, has been quite an important factor to negotiation proceed. And there are many models discussed so far. How to denuclearize North Korea. The so-called Libyan model, particularly interpreted a la John Bolton's in a very narrow sense. and progressive simultaneous action. This is a step-by-step action-to-action formula, particularly advanced by China and North Korea. And South Korean Moon Jae-in government suggested a comprehensive agreement and gradual implementation approach. And other than that, perhaps Trump maybe suggested his own model. We don't know yet exactly what it is. And also there are a lot of discussion about nuclear weapon free zone and so on, but still the negotiation, actual negotiation is going on between North Korea and the United States. So this time, can we believe denuclearizing North Korea will be successful? Look at what North Korea has demanded so far in return for giving up their nuclear weapon. In 2016, North Korea suggested five conditions for giving up their nuclear weapon. First one is the disclosure of USSK nuclear weapon. We all know that there's no USSK nuclear weapon on the Korean Peninsula. US tactical nukes has been withdrawn from South Korean Peninsula in 1991. But nevertheless, North Korea put this. Second, elimination and eradication of US nukes in South Korea. Third, start joint US-South Korea military exercise, mobilizing US strategic assets, and pledge to stop using nukes, withdrawal of USK from the Korean Peninsula. And early this year, when US and DPRK were discussing about Singapore summit, they suggested some more additional demand. One is the elimination of a military threat, second one is the guarantee for regional security, and third is the peace treaty and diplomatic normalization. Some of these demands, perhaps United States can accept, and perhaps some cannot. So I think that's the some of the difficult part that both US and North Korea should discuss in the coming days. And of course, the US views on North Korean denuclearization is quite straightforward, very firm principle, CVID, and will never repeat past mistake, which means that no rules until complete denuclearization. And of course, all those arguments is based on deep distrust of North Korea's intention. And next slide that shows the summit, inter-Korean summit, is quite an unimaginable picture even half years ago. But miraculously, we got this picture in April this year. And next is some of the important point agreed upon in Peninsula Declaration, roughly three parts. One is the improved relations to seek shared prosperity and self-reliant reunification. This is mostly improving inter-Korean relations. Second part is the reducing military tension in the Korean Peninsula. And third part, establishing lasting peace. Denuclearization is only mentioned as very briefly at the end of this part. So it's kind of a reversed order before the summit, and in comparison is the most important part, bringing peace to complete denuclearization. It is a little bit weaker than most people expected before the summit, but nevertheless, this is what both Korea agreed on Peninsula meeting. So, evaluating very briefly, some of the most, one of the most controversial issues was exactly agreed upon regarding denuclearization. So the Peninsula Declaration mentioned the complete denuclearization. We don't know yet whether it is the same thing as a CVID or any other concept. And the text of the Peninsula Declaration is in complete reverse order, as I mentioned, in comparison with the expectation we had before the summit. So after that, we had a Trump-Kim summit statement, also with the four key agreements. Here again, we don't have any detailed description about what is the denuclearization roadmap, what content of the denuclearization. But roughly, the Singapore summit also confirmed that they will reaffirm April 27 Panmunjom Declaration and commit to work toward a complete denuclearization. So it is indeed a historic summit, but in terms of detail and actual deliverable, I think it is quite a little bit disappointing. And a major, also we have some remaining questions like what will be the impact of US withdrawal from Iran JCPOA. It seems like by withdrawing from JCPOA, Trump administration is setting a very high bar in dealing with North Korean denuclearization negotiation. So the question is that will US DPRK be able to pass the high bar? It will be we'll wait and see. And also a lot of discussion issues, early harvest or late harvest. Perhaps Trump may want early harvest, meaning that important decision for nuclear issue can be processed in the early part of the bargain. But it seems to me these days, North Korea is trying to delay as much as possible and focusing on getting some benefit and dealing the issue at the last moment, meaning they emphasize the late harvest. And of course, the most difficult part is inspection and verification protocols. Will North Korea accept intrusive verification? I think that's the key question. As you remember, the last round of the 6-party talk started in December 2008 over the disagreeable verification protocol. So given that experience, can we be sure that this time North Korea will accept that very high level verification and inspection protocol? And also another controversy, what about the biochemical weapons and missiles North Korea already have? I think this will be another hurdle that should be discussed in the coming days. And there are several opportunities, actually huge opportunity, I think, for multilateral cooperation in dealing with North Korean issue. And potential areas for multilateral cooperation, I think roughly 3 big chunk of issues should be addressed. One is the inspection and verification. Second one is the dismantlement. Third is conversion issue. In case of inspection and verification, HU program and plutonium program and also weapon program, this is the big issue that must be inspected and verified. And actually, dismantling weapons, material facilities, this is another complicated issue. And finally, how to converse, how to make a conversion of North Korean infrastructure, nuclear infrastructure, and scientists involved in that program. Already we have a good trilateral experience of trilateral cooperation, like a KIDO and TICAR, trilateral coordination oversight group, to handle the North Korean nuclear issue. And 6-party talk. Whether it's a failed diplomacy or continuation, I don't know yet. But anyhow, based on these past experience, perhaps we can find a new opportunity for multilateral cooperation in the coming years. So in conclusion, I would like to say, characterize the current situation from now on. It looks like we are facing a very complex 3-dimensional game. One dimension is the inter-Korean dimension. Second dimension is the DPRK-US dimension, and third dimension is the DPRK inter-community relations. And of course, there are many separate issues in all of these 3 dimensions. For example, inter-Korean dimension, perhaps we should discuss how to improve actual peace condition in the Korean Peninsula. And perhaps implementing the Panmunjom Declaration, it will be an issue that should be discussed between 2 Korea. And DPRK US, I think that's the most important thing is how to find a CVID versus region security guarantee exchange formula. And DPRK international community, of course, the lifting sanction issue, particularly UN Security Council, and international support and for verification procedure and monitoring system. So, roughly speaking, we have a lot of issues not discussed yet. And perhaps in the future, all these issues should be addressed in more detailed way. And also, because of that, even though we had a successful Singapore summit, I feel like we're at the starting point, not the end point. Thank you.
Let me invite Dr. Francesca.